Yeah, the first question is why have you decided to run?
Well, I'll tell you, that's a great question. It's a question I get asked all the time. I
Yeah,
look at the current atmosphere in Washington right now, and I look
yeah,
at a lot of the politicians, and there's two things. One is I think our elected officials have forgot about accountability,
yeah,
transparency, and most importantly, they have forgotten that they work for us. We don't work for them.
yeah,
Another reason why I'm running is because I noticed that a lot of our political figures, it's almost like their credentials and resumes are watered down. I mean, I
yeah,
look at some of the elected officials and the positions that they're in, and it just blows me away that we've elected people in certain positions that don't even have a college education,
yeah,
nor do they have military. And yet, what we're seeing constantly is endorsements being thrown around to people like Halloween candy. And so,
yeah,
looking at those things and looking at the current atmosphere, not only in Florida and Washington, I decided that this was the time. I've been working my entire life for this point, and I was just waiting for Vern Buchanan to retire, which he actually did on my birthday. So I saw that as a sign. And so,
yeah.
yeah, so that's why I'm running. I'm not a career politician. I've been in public service
That's
my
great.
entire life, and I will continue to be that way.
All right, so what are your main priorities?
Well, I have a lot of things that I want to do.
Yeah,
I can tell you right now, from a standpoint of asking the people that I speak to, I think one of the topics that always comes up is affordability.
yeah,
And affordability is kind of a wide range because it incorporates a lot of different categories. It involves
yeah,
seniors,
it
it
does.
involves young people, it involves veterans. So, that's one thing. The other thing is too is in order to drain the swamp in Washington and start cycling some fresh ideas with some younger faces, I am wanting to push for term limits in Congress.
Yeah,
I think that is
yeah,
is crucially important. Is that there is term limits. I think what ends up happening is, we elect people to represent us. They go in with the intention of helping others, and then after about 2, 3 terms, it goes from you to me. And suddenly a salary of 174,000 becomes a salary of $10 million a year, and
yeah,
everybody's scratching their heads trying to figure out, well, how did that happen?
yeah. Okay, let's go to affordability first, and what are, the specific policies you want to address on that wide topic?
Well, affordability right now, I think the American dream for for every person that lives in the United States, especially with young people, is
Yeah,
that ability to purchase a home, um, start a family,
yeah,
have extra money to be able to enjoy some of the finer things in life, especially what Florida has to offer. I
yeah,
think what we're seeing right now is a lot of young people are trying to stretch their checks out beyond what they're capable of doing, and I think that's really becoming a problem. We
yeah,
have interest rates that are just crazy high. Rent is crazy high.
yeah,
Healthcare is crazy high. Insurance is crazy high. So I think right now people are really discouraged and aren't really trusting the ones that they've elected because once again, it's almost impossible now to fulfill that American dream.
yeah,
So, I mean, we talk about, protecting Social Security and Medicare, healthcare affordability, cost of living. I mean, it's just so many things that need to be addressed.
yeah,
But I want to be the congressman that speaks for the people, defends the people, brings legislation to Washington, and writes legislation that's going to help combat a lot of these problems so that affordability is more feasible for everyone.
yeah. All right. On the topic of veterans, what are exactly the policies and measures you want to implement to support?
You know what? That's a great question. And
Yeah.
I'm happy to say that I am the only congressional 16 candidate that not only served in the military, but I'm
Oh,
also the
that's
only
great.
congressional candidate in 16 that is former law enforcement. I'm also the only congressional 16 candidate that has two masters and a doctorate. I'm also the only congressional 16 candidate that has taken a small business, and now I'm currently a COO for a company that deals with life-saving medications and pharmaceuticals, and we're on the business of saving lives. As far as the veterans, I would know better than any of the other candidates because not only am I a veteran, but I'm also a
Yeah.
disabled veteran.
Yeah.
And I completely understand because what separates me from them is that when I look at the issues going on with veterans, I can look at it from a lens from the inside out. They only can look at it from a lens from the outside in. So I can
Yeah.
tell you as a disabled veteran, there's a lot of factors. For instance, um, myself and other veterans, as far as access to medical care, we have veterans that are waiting 4, 5, 6 months to be seen by a doctor. And then what ends up happening after a certain time, then what's happening is they're pushing out these veterans to go ahead and see an outside civilian doctor. And then it's
Yeah.
another 3 or 4 months. So, access time and access to the VA is a problem. I know that the VA has cut back considerably on personnel. That's another issue. One of the other things we need to look at is the mental health and suicide prevention programs out there,
Yeah.
homelessness. One of the things that I talk about, in fact, what I've been doing, and I'm really into doing a lot of research, and I've already have a 30, 60, 90-day plan in place that I've already drawn up. One of the things that I've drawn up for legislation that I want to try to implement if I get elected is proposing a tax credit for small businesses that hire veterans, which right now is not
Yeah.
offered. And I think that would go a long way because one of the unique things about my company being in the position that I am is that I always look to hire veterans. I think it's the utmost importance, especially those
Yeah.
who have served this country and may have gotten into fields that maybe don't transition into the civilian world. So think about it. You put your life on the line, you're defending this country, you may be
Yeah.
in infantry or something else, and then you put 10 or 15 or 20 years in, you come out, maybe you're disabled, maybe you're not, but you're looking for a job. There's not a lot of jobs out there for someone that's been in infantry or something to that effect.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm all about that. I know it. I'm living it. I see what's happening. These are the men and women that defend our country, defend the Constitution, and unfortunately, they're the ones that are really suffering, and there's a lot that needs to be done for them. And I want to be that representative for that.
Yeah. Mental health, of course, is very important in this case.
Mental health is tremendously important. As a
Yeah.
police officer, I've seen it all the time. Suicide. I mean, we have both police officers and veterans suffering from PTSD,
Yeah.
and there's not a lot that's out there to offer. And unless you know, and unless you've experienced it, I was CIT trained. So I did a lot of evaluation on mental illness as a police officer, working with a lot of disabled vets.
Yeah.
I've seen it firsthand. And I understand truly what their issues and problems are. The other candidates don't, and that's a problem. And I think people need to understand that.
Yeah. Well, you also mentioned seniors. So what are your specific policies for seniors?
Seniors, well, I think there's a lot of things when we talk about seniors. We have to talk about protecting Social Security and Medicare.
Yeah.
A lot of our seniors are on fixed incomes, and so that affordability is like runs right alongside of that. And I
Yeah.
can tell you right now, I'll use my own mother as an example. My mom was on a fixed income, and she was renting a home, and everything started to skyrocket. And she gets a phone call from the owner and says, "Hey, by the way, we're raising the rent." $400 or $500 a month. Well, that's beyond what my mom could even afford. So now she's in panic mode
Yeah.
because she doesn't know how to handle all of this. And then before you know it, now they're calling her back and saying, hey, forget about the rent. We're selling the place, and the people that are going to be purchasing don't want tenants. So now you're forcing
Yeah.
someone who's 70 something years old out to try to find some place with the rent to where it is right now. It's just not
Awful.
affordable.
It's awful.
It's horrible. And
Yeah.
so I went ahead and purchased the place for my mom to stay. But then you have, health affordability. Um, and then on top of that, let's mix fraud and elderly exploitation. People that are basically honing in on the elderly and trying to take advantage of them and the stuff that they're
Yeah,
going
you have
through.
scams and all that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I see it as a police officer. I've seen widows 80, 85 years old where their significant other passed away and was normally handling all of their affairs. And once they passed on, there are individuals that will take advantage of these people and
Yeah.
basically drain their accounts out. And it's just sad. So there's a lot of education that needs to be done. Um, and like I said, it's a sad situation. And unless you're living it, unless you've experienced it, you're never going to understand it truly. I mean, like I said, I see it as a police officer, um, as a COO. I have people coming in here. I have people that come in here that are 70, 75 years old, and they tell me, hey, listen, I need a part-time job. I'm not sure if you're going to hire me because of my age, but affordability has
Yeah.
been something I can't feasibly wrap my arms around because everything's going up and my social security has stayed the same. So,
Yeah.
and once again, I embrace moments where I can go ahead and hire people like that and try to help them out.
That's right. Well, you also said that you would like to see some different policies implemented for younger people. I don't know what you mean about that, but if you could tell me a little bit about that.
Expand about younger people.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. Term limits, I think, are crucial because what
Yeah.
happens is you have people that have been elected that may be in Washington 20, 25, 30 years. And,
Yeah.
times have changed. Unfortunately, their thoughts and ideas have not. And they're still fixed on the things that have happened 25 years
Yeah.
ago. So they haven't really evolved with the changes or the current situation with what's happening right now in Florida or in Washington. So they become out of touch.
Yeah.
And by implementing term limits, it allows younger people to get more involved in the process. Now I'm not young, but I'm not old. I'm 57 years old, but I've done a lot to
Yeah.
be able to contribute to this position. I mean, I served my country as a police officer and a state trooper. I was one of the
Yeah, you
most
you have the
decorated.
experience.
Yeah, and that's it. So, remember, leadership is not a title. Okay. And people get confused with that. Leadership is an action. And there's an
Yeah.
old saying that says, if you want to know what someone can achieve, just look what they've accomplished. And I
Yeah,
think
that's right.
that is the best representation of who we should have as elected officials, people that put forth the effort. And like I said, it's a little discouraging when you look at the news and you watch things going on and you find out that, you know, we have people that are holding positions that have, like I said, no college education,
Yeah.
have a criminal record, and or they're hiding behind endorsements, and if I could, let me just touch base on that. You know, I run a successful company, and if I hired people based on referrals and endorsements, I would fail as a company. And the
Yeah.
reason being is because you have to interview everyone that walks in that door to find out exactly what they will contribute to your company. And I like to
Yeah.
look at education. I like to look at volunteer work. I like to look at, what they've done in prior employment. So there's a lot of things that I look at. And what the taxpayers need to start to do is they need to take on that role as a hiring manager. And they have to ask themselves, okay, this elected official, he or she is going to be working for me. So let me go ahead and do the interview. So, I mean, first thing,
Yeah,
I don't care about the endorsements. And we've seen the history of that. Endorsements means absolutely nothing, whether it's a presidential endorsement or it's a corporation endorsement. We've seen people that have been endorsed that have been fired in Washington. We've seen people
yeah,
that have been endorsed to run for campaigns in Florida and have lost the elections. And
yeah,
that's because we don't take time to look at the candidates. And I think that if you look at all three candidates for the congressional 16 spot, by far I stand out. Okay, as far as someone that has done the time, and once again, I mean, I'm a public servant, and I'm happy to say
yeah,
that. And I enjoy what I do, and I love what I do. And I've always told my kids, when you find something you truly love, you never work another day in your life.
yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, because this is, I think, an issue that you're gonna have a lot to say about. What are your specific policies in regards to public safety?
Well, when we talk about public safety, we have an obligation, okay, as the United
Yeah,
States of America to protect every citizen in the United States. And where does that start? That starts with the border. And
yeah,
that's a topic right now that's kind of going back and forth. And one of the things that I talk about, and I do have an education in counterterrorism and critical incident management, is when we look at the immigration problems today compared to 50, 60, 70, 80 years ago, my grandparents, great grandparents, I should say, came over from Italy
yeah,
to America. And when they came over, once again, they were looking for that American dream. They came because they wanted to contribute to
yeah,
America. They wanted to be productive in society. Okay. But I hate to say this, but we don't live in those times anymore. And unfortunately, there are a lot of people around this world and even within this country that want to hurt, harm, kill American citizens. So border security is, if not one of the most
yeah,
important things when it comes to public safety, because we need to have an idea or know who is coming into this country, and they need to do it legally. Now, we have such an influx of people that are in this country right now, and and trust me, I've seen both sides of this, and there are a lot of good people too that try to go about it the
yeah,
legal way.
yeah,
But waiting in lotteries 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, it got to a certain point in their lives where it was becoming a danger for themselves, or maybe it was becoming a danger for their family, or maybe it was a matter of survival. So they did what they
yeah,
had to do. So do I think that we need to revisit some sort of policies to maybe implementing some programs for those that have come into the United States already and trying to make them US citizens? Absolutely. But we also have to look at too is, there are still people here that still want to do harm. And
yeah,
a lot of these people create what's called, terrorist cells and are just waiting for those opportunities to hit. ICE is getting a bad rap. ICE has a job to do, and people don't
yeah,
seem to understand that. Their job, just like with SWAT, which was something that I was a part of, our job was to go after the worst of the worst, the bad people that are
yeah,
out there, you know? And sometimes there are casualties involved. Trust me, we're not all perfect. Nobody's perfect.
yeah.
Okay. But
Nobody
just
is.
like every
Yeah,
profession, there's going to be some problems along the way. But
yeah,
someone has to do it. You can't say, hey, we want to abolish ICE. You just can't do that.
yeah,
These are things that have been put in place to protect the public. Now, when we start getting to a point where we're going to say, all right, well, we're going to forgive this and start creating more double standards with the criminal justice system, then how's anybody going to take the law serious? There has to be a
Yeah.
consequence for actions that are taken that are criminal. We could argue about it all day long. I seen it as a trooper. Look, I stopped you for speeding, okay? And I can prove that, So now it's a matter of you either paying the fine or deciding to go to school, or if you want to go ahead and discuss it in court, then we can do that too. You have options. But I had a
Yeah.
job to do. So yeah, public safety is crucial, but it does start with the borders. And on top of that, it's about backing our blue. I
Yeah.
love being a law enforcement officer. It's one of the greatest jobs that are out there. And it's also one of the toughest. And, every
Yeah, it
shift
is.
is an emotional roller coaster ride. I mean, one minute, you could be helping someone with a flat tire, and the next thing you know, you're doing a next of kin notification for a horrific incident that happened to a family member. It's a tough job. It really
Yeah.
is. And like I said, I support the blue. I will always support the blue. I will do everything in my power as a congressman to make sure that they have the tool to do what they do. One of the things that I would like to do as a congressman is I'd like to present legislation to any and all police officers that in the state of Florida that have done 20 years of service and trying to give them 100% of their medical benefits. So that is something that I would like to be able to
Yeah.
push to Washington. And because of a lot of the things, because of, injuries that may have been occurred in while on duty, or,
Yeah.
the sacrifices that they've
Yeah.
made, or whatever. But 20-year plus in service, I think every law enforcement officer is entitled to 100% of their medical benefits.
Yeah. Well, the last question would be, what are your policies in regards to environmental protection?
Well, environmental protection is a great question that I tell you, I'm very fortunate to live in Florida. I moved down to New York and I was happy to say goodbye to the snow.
Yeah.
And one thing about Florida is you can enjoy the beaches, you can enjoy what
Yeah, the
Florida has
weather's
to
nice.
offer. Oh, 12 months of the year,
Yeah.
it gets a little hot, but we have something down here that I don't see much of in New York, and that's called central air. So, but yeah, I,
Yeah.
I love it, and that's one of the things we have to preserve. I mean, tourism is big for Florida, and people come down here because they want to enjoy the same things that we can enjoy every day. So we
Yeah.
have to make sure that as a congressman, that I am looking out for the environment, and there's a lot of things that play into that. Infrastructure, construction, as far as everybody's talking about AI, and
Yeah.
AI development centers and stuff, and the impact. I mean, look, I embrace technology, but we really have to look at what kind of impact it's going to have on our environment,
Yeah.
especially something like AI centers. When we look at AI centers, we have to ask ourselves, A, is it going to have an impact on our water supply? B, is it going to have an impact
Yeah.
on our animal life and wildlife? Also, too, what kind of electrical draw is it going to have? I mean, what is going to happen? I mean, how much power is it going to take? And are we going to run into problems as far as being able to furnish electricity to a lot of the residential areas? We also have to focus on, right now, the biggest contributor to water, as far as having good, clean water, is the water that we end up as far as drainage, like we get a lot of flooding, we get a
Yeah.
lot of hurricanes, and what ends up happening is really no place to disperse this water. Okay, so what's happening is water is getting drained back out into the ocean. Um, you know, Out in some of our ponds. So I think we really have to work some infrastructure as far as rerouting a lot of the
Yeah.
water that we end up taking on, from either flooding, from either hurricanes or storms. But the environment,
Yeah.
very important. I'm totally for that. I've been able to talk to a lot of local environmentalists and listen to their concerns. But like I said, as a congressman, I will never press the green button on anything until I know for sure how it's going to have an impact. And I'll be honest too, a lot of the things that I think need to be done I would like to create advisory groups and to be able to have openly discussions about this. And I think that's important. And I think that's one of the things that we're not doing anymore. I think people are tired of turning in or tuning into what's going on in Washington, and all we have is the fighting back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. We're not getting anything
Yeah,
accomplished. So I think what we do is, I think if we end up peeling back to the core of what we really want, come to find out we all want the same thing. So I think what we need to do is we need to learn to be able to sit down, break bread, have these discussions, have an advisory group, discuss some of the issues within our
yeah,
communities, and then what do we need to do to make things happen? And then me be the advocate to go ahead and present it not only up to Tallahassee, but to taking it up to Washington.
yeah. Well, I don't know if there's anything else you'd like to say or mention, any other policy, but if you don't have anything else to say, I'll just, well, say thank you for answering all my questions.
Well, I would like to say that I always enjoy an opportunity when I can talk to a young person like yourself and be able to share some of the ideas. And if I can connect with you with some of the ideas that I have and we are in agreement, then I know I'm on the right path. The one thing I can say is that people got to get out and vote. I tell my kids all the time
Yeah,
that when you're faced with problems, either in your lives or in the community or on a national level, there's three things you can do. You can either do nothing, you can be part of the problem, or you can be part of the solution. So
yeah,
everybody needs to contribute. And what I'm hearing a lot of is people are very disconnected with everything that's going on. They're just fed up and their attitude is, well, I'm just not going to vote. Well, that's not doing anything. That's becoming part of the problem. And if
yeah,
you really want to make things change, okay, then when you need to come and vote August 18th, vote for Dr. Edward Pope and know that I will be defending, I will be supporting, I will be the spokesman, I will be the congressman that everybody wants because, once again, I'm a public servant and that's my job.
yeah,
It's always been my job. But I do appreciate the conversation. I look forward to it. And hopefully we'll get a chance to talk again.
yeah, for sure.
All
Well,
right.
but best wishes for this campaign. I hope that you can get elected.
And I hope so too. And I promise this, if I do, you will be my first interview. How's that sound?
That's nice. That's great. It
You
sounds
you get
perfect.
you get an exclusive. Okay. It
Oh,
won't be a
that's nice.
national news team or anything, because you have been the first person that's actually reached out and said, hey, you know what? I'd really like to sit and talk to you and I'd really get an idea. And you know what? I respect that. And one of the things I never forget. And I'm very loyal. And so I
Yeah,
appreciate you reaching out
I
to
can
me.
tell.
And we'll make sure that if that happens, we'll send you one of those press passes and we'll get you right in and I will give you an exclusive interview.
Well, thank you very much. Have a
All
have a
right.
great day.
You too. You take care of yourself. Bye bye now.
You too. Bye.
Bye bye.